WISC TV now presents For the Record.
Women in Business, Challenges, Opportunities, and Rewards is next on For the Record. Thanks for joining us. I'm Neil Heinen. Rather than begin by framing this issue, I'm going to let my guests do that. I'll just start by telling you the motivation for this show is the first Women in Business event put on by SVA at the Edgewater next month. We want to invite you to the event and give you reasons why you might want to accept that invitation. And to do that, I welcome to For the Record Jenny Harritz, principal with SVA, where she manages the business intelligence practice, and Kristen Houghton, a principal and head of the nonprofit services group with SVA Certified Public Accountants. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, why now? What's the thinking behind this event in 2017 with all that we talk about with women in business?
That's a good question. Before we get started, we wanted to thank you and WISC for partnering with us in this first event. Really appreciate your support.
It's really a nice opportunity. We're looking forward to it. I know Susan Simon is going to moderate it, which is just terrific. She's wonderful. You'll like her.
There were really two motivations for this event. So first, looking out at the women in Madison and really showcasing some of the successes and sharing the success that a lot of people have had. And then second, we want to make sure that we set up for our internal staff. We have 53% women in SVA. Make sure that we're setting up a good example and celebrating the success of our clients, of our women in the community, and of our professional staff within the company.
Right. Kirsten, does this reflect any sort of change in or the current status of women business owners, business people in the greater Madison region economy?
Right. So, you know, you go to a lot of events and you're looking at philanthropy. There's a lot of great women philanthropists in Madison, and women and men. But we thought it'd be great to profile what are women doing in business? How did they succeed? People really want to hear, how did you get from point A to point B or point Z, and what did you do for all those steps? They want the nuts and bolts, and I think it'll be fascinating to listen to people and what their stories are. And it's not an awards event, it's simply come together, hear their stories, take away things that'll help you, and just have a great experience. And
of course, you've got that nonprofit perspective from your practice. What do we need to know to understand the relationship between the nonprofit and the for-profit business world in which this is being held?
Right. Well, as we all know, in Dane County, we're very lucky because it's a very philanthropic community, and the women that are in business, whether they own their own businesses or they're leaders in their companies, that philanthropic bent is there as well. And that piece is great, but I think the combination of women succeeding in business and then taking those dollars and supporting the community, or having their employees go out and volunteer, or engaging their employees so they're building a culture from the ground up that then takes those young staff into the future is great.
Yeah. Don't want to be naive about this. I mean, there are still significant challenges to women in business, and we hear about them nationally, globally, all the time. The glass ceiling still seems to be real. The income disparity is real. But help us, maybe, what's the climate in Madison? What is there about the Dane County region that is sort of, going to be the environment in which this conference is going to take place?
So I think we're really lucky in Madison that we do have some high-profile women in business that have been very successful. When you look at Judy Faulkner, when you look at Lori Benson, a number of people in the community, Pleasant Rowland, of course. So I think we have a really good climate for that. What all of the people on our panel talked about, and when we talk to each other, we talk about our teams, about networking, about really being a part of something. So what I think is really special about this conference is that we're bringing people together. It's a breakfast, but also a chance to network throughout the community and get to know each other, which is not something on a national scale. It's something, just face-to-face, get a chance to talk to other people. Yeah.
Do you have a sense yet? I mean, there are some pretty high-profile women's groups right now that have, even in the last couple of years, the Doyen Group, for example, and we just had Sabrina Madison on with her Black Women's Entrepreneurs Leadership Group. Is there any relationship there among those groups, and would you expect to see representatives at this conference?
That's what we would hope to see. We'd hope to see people that are working with them, that are inspired by them, to want to hear from more women that are successful. What's interesting about our panel, it's women from science, medicine, fields that are technically, or not technically, but typically more male dominated, so it's harder maybe initially to get into those fields, maybe not so much now as it was 20 years ago. So I think it's going to be interesting to hear from women in different careers so that other young women can model that, say like, well, I could go into that type of career path where maybe in the past I wouldn't think I had, because I don't want to, there's a lot of competition and gender roles and things like that.
Yeah. Maybe this would be a good time to talk about what the event's going to look like and who's going to be there, and then we can talk about how people might, connect with it. What was your thinking behind this group of speakers and the topics that they're talking about?
So we pulled a number of people throughout our organization, said, who do you work with that's just somebody that's really amazing, that's really inspiring. And so each of the 3 panelists were chosen from people that we have experience working with, and we're all people that we felt, this, again, Kirsten said this is not an award, but that we're really inspiring, that we thought they all give back to the community, that we thought had a really good story to share and be inspiring and a role model to other people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
They're also, and I know 2 of the women for sure because I was actually reading some information Jenny put together. Both of these women, I can't remember which one it was, but anyway, both of the women were perceived to be, they'd be a hygienist instead of a dentist. That's Lori. So because her father was a dentist, people assumed she would be a hygienist.
Right.
And she's like, well, no, I'm going to follow my father's footsteps. So ultimately she took over his business and now has 3 more dentists in her practice as well and is considering expanding. So it's that kind of thing where there were the perceived job she would have and then said, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this job instead. So I think that's inspiring, especially to young women where they can see a different path for themselves, or they can say, no, I don't want that job, I want this job over here.
We still have that gender bias.
One of our panelists, Kim Lobdell, talked about how she went to engineering school, runs an engineering company now, but she'd go to school and the other people in her group would say, oh, well, you can take notes. And she politely said, I'm willing to take my turn taking notes, but I'm here to learn just like you are. And I think that all of us have been in a situation like that where it's, here, you just go take care of this, whether male, female, whatever, and having the opportunity then to have the confidence to say, no, I can do this, I really can do this. So we hope that all the panelists will be very inspiring.
Well, when we come back, let's talk about who should attend this event and what they might expect to get out of it. We'll do that right after this. I am back with 2 principals at SVA who in June are putting on the first Women in Business event that SVA is presenting. WISC TV and Madison Magazine are sponsoring that event. And my guests are Jenny Harritz, who is principal and manager of the Business Intelligence Practice, and Kirsten Houghton, who is a principal and head of Nonprofit Services Group with SVA Certified Public Accountants. It's at the Edgewater. Registration is available. We'll talk about how people can do it. But it's 2 hours, packed 2 hours with a panel of people. We started talking about that, but talk about the individual panelists and what they bring.
So as Kirsten mentioned, we represent a number of different industries. There's a total of 4 panelists. So 3 coming from the community. One is our very own Kirsten.
I'm one of the panelists, right?
Talking about the nonprofit sector in particular.
Right, because I'll just jump in for myself since we switched to me. So when I moved to Madison 20 years ago, and I just graduated from graduate school and went to public accounting, and basically almost started out immediately in nonprofit work, and then basically I've done that for 20 years, and really enjoy it. But to talk about going into still a male-dominated industry 20 years ago, and then making changes in firms, and then kind of working my way to where I am today, I think is a good story. And just I went back to school, got additional education, and just the issues I've encountered of just learning to speak up for myself, ask for what I want, all of those things.
Sure. And the other 3 speakers will have similar.
Yes. Dr. Veerman owns Madison Family Dental. Also has a really interesting story we alluded to a little bit earlier. Starting out as a hygienist, she thought that her career path was, if she wanted to go back to school, become a teacher. And eventually she thought, obviously, being a dentist would be really neat. Kim Lobdell is an engineer, runs an engineering company, and then Anna Hooker is Senior Vice President of Operations at Exact Sciences. Really inspiring person.
And is there going to be an opportunity for interaction with the audience?
That's exactly it. So it's set up as a panel so that it's an open format. It is moderated. But the intent is that we can share stories. It'll be an open format. And then there's networking as well that will go on as well.
And so is this for a woman who is thinking about starting a business and isn't sure? Is it for someone who's in business and is looking for support? You know, who are you reaching here?
I think it's all those things.
Yeah.
I think it's the woman that just got out of college and is in her first job. I think it's a woman that might be in a mid-level management position that's unsure of, should I make a change to something else, or it's somebody that might be more later in their career and might gain some new insights of a different direction to go, or it could literally even be somebody that's going to retire but is retiring, you know, early and may want to start a new career.
Yeah. And, you know, tell me if I'm wrong, but, you know, it just feels like, do we need to you know, address explicitly that this is for women in business, and then that's still important, that, you know, in 2017 that there's a need for women to support each other. There's a need for the, you know, the culture in general to recognize the role that women play in business. And, you know, I think we dance around it a lot. But this is a pretty explicit statement.
Yeah.
You know, we are going to create an event for women to come and talk about business.
Right.
So I think that the numbers can help tell that story a little better than even probably our words can. So if you look at the number of people graduating from college, it's now over 50% are women. But as you go up the chain or up the hierarchy within business, those numbers start to dwindle. So if you look at executives, it's about 25% of business executives are women. You get up to the board level, it's below 20%. You get up to Fortune 500 CEOs, and you're looking at 5 or 6%. You know, and you can go beyond that, you know, if you'd like as well. You know, what has happened over the last 30 years is that while more and more women become educated, at some point they start to fall off as their careers grow. So do we need support, or do we want to offer that support and stories of people that have been successful, you know, to talk through some of the things that you know, that have worked for them, and then also, you know, there's no harm in networking, certainly. So, you know, to be able to offer the opportunity to build those relationships in our community, I think is something that we feel is valuable, and I hope that others feel as well.
I mean, this would suggest, the presentation and the speakers, that SVA is an example of a company where women have had some success, and doesn't that have some value for people coming here?
Definitely, I think so. We're, as Jenny mentioned, we're 53% women at this point. I know in my department we've had, basically I'd call it like a sea change in the number of women that are in our department. We now outnumber the men, which even like 4 years ago is not the case. And that's a reflection of women graduating from college, going into accounting, and then going into the workforce. But you had said something earlier about supporting each other, women supporting each other. And I think what I've learned from being involved in the community is that, and this goes across all kinds of people, but the more you share stories and communicate with each other, and the more you break down barriers, the more you break down whatever it is, inherent biases, you learn about each other, and the more of that is in the community, I think it's better for everybody, no matter if it's this event or whatever it might be. Yeah.
So this might be jumping the gun a little bit, but how do we reach the men? I mean, that's a part of it, right? And you know, I could envision men wanting to come to this event just simply to be educated, and to learn about this community's, the women in this community.
When we started putting this together, there's also an internal piece within our firm, and we've talked about that at length about we don't want it to be a women's initiative. It's a company initiative because, as you said, men work with women, whether they're their clients or their co-workers, and they need that. We all need education on how to overcome our hidden biases or gender, you know, gender biases and that type of thing. So that's a piece, I think, as this continues on, and we hopefully have another event continue to look at that and talk about inclusion.
I think that there's some really interesting numbers in that area, in that Bain Women's Leadership Group had put together a study, and it talked about how in their performing groups, their performing teams, the teams that had the lowest percentage of women compared to those that had the highest percentage of women, the groups with a higher percentage of women outperformed the lower by 35%. McKinsey and Company did a similar study, dug in deeper and said, well, why is that? Is it that the women are better at it? And it wasn't. What it was there was a diversity of thought, bringing in other thoughts, other perspectives into a leadership team, into a working team, and making sure that we capitalize on in not creating groupthink. You know, I think we can think of a lot of examples of groupthink and where that's gone badly for people. Yep. You know, but really, you know, where do we include the men? Everywhere. You know, a women's group is probably no better. Only a solely women's team is probably not any better than a solely male team. Right. It's that diversity that we need.
Well, we're going to talk more about the Women in Business event and tell you exactly how you can participate when we come back right after this. And I'm back with Jenny Harritz and Kirsten Houghton, both principals with SVA, the certified public accounting firm, putting on this month the inaugural Women in Business event, June 20th, from 7:30 to 9:30 at the Edgewater Hotel. An opportunity for women to come, women and men, anyone, but women to come and listen to a panel of speakers talk about women in business and the challenges and the opportunities. And it, you know, it just strikes me that SVA would be a place where you would really get a snapshot of the climate for women in business right now. I mean, all of the areas that you represent there, and that you would have perhaps a little bit of insight into how are things for women in business in Madison. Do you get a sense of how we compete with other regions as a place where women want to come, want to start a business, want to get involved in business?
So I think that Madison's a pretty friendly place. I think the university helps us a lot. I think we have a lot of diversity of thought and representation there. I know I personally have felt very lucky in the opportunities that have been offered to me. You know, my personal story being that I was able to, when I had children, take some time off and work part-time and then still progress within my career. Looking nationally, I don't know that that's always true. Working in a technology sector, I think there's a lot of stories out there where things haven't quite been that way.
Yeah, you're right.
So I feel really good about our opportunities and about, you know, my opportunities in particular, and excited to bring people
which
together.
is interesting and maybe a little cautionary because we have such a big emerging tech sector here. Right. We may not have an Uber or a Google yet, but we're, you know, we could have one soon. And those issues, which are very current right now, could be issues we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say, too, in the CPA firm side, because we do have tax season, with more and more women entering our workforce, that need for flexibility for everybody has become a real issue that's being addressed, and trying to be fair to everyone, but yet recognizing that people need to work different schedules. It needs to be, really want to focus on balance, and that's for everyone. But I think with more women coming into the workforce, it brings that to a head because of families and other commitments. And I think our firm has been very good about recognizing that and then taking active steps and not just talking about it.
Today's technology is really neat too, in that, you know, we've invested in putting in telepresence and video conferencing and so on, so that we can reach a larger audience and, you know, have people work in the way that's comfortable for them, whether that's at home or in the office. Yeah,
you may not necessarily be addressing this specifically at the conference, but are you expecting to hear from attendees perhaps that there are still political obstacles that remain? There are still, you know, pay issues, and there's still advancement issues that are sort of murky in the whole political climate we're living in right now.
Absolutely, I think that's part of the world we live in.
Yeah. And could will these panelists be able to address that if they're asked?
Oh, definitely, because they all have different experiences. You know, not every person is a business owner too. So Anna, for example, is working within a company, so she'll have a different perspective. I think all women in this group will have thoughts on those topics as far as, you know, gender issues, pay inequities. The pay thing's always tough though too, because it is confidential and you kind of don't know where you're at. So that's always an issue of just in general, how to deal with that.
Yeah. you know, I think we run into those issues a lot, and that's okay. I mean, sometimes it's good just to be able to talk to each other about it, keep it high profile, you know, and recognize that it's you know, it's one of the issues that have to be dealt with in some ways. So how can people register? What's the best way to get involved here?
On our website, you can register through the website or get more information from our website. That's a good way.
Yeah, there's a paper invitation's gone out. There'll be email invites that are going out. Okay. And then also, as Jenny mentioned, the website, Facebook, Twitter. So all those venues will be available. I believe you're going to put those up too. But also, if anyone is listening to us now and wants to attend, you can always reach out to either Jenny or I at SVA. We're on our website. You can contact us, and we can give you more information too.
It's only $20, right? I mean, a modest registration fee. Can you see continuing this? I mean, I suppose you never know until you do it, but if you're putting your foot in the water, could you see this evolving?
I definitely do. I'm involved quite a bit with United Way Women's Leadership, and we have events as well, and I just see the number of women that turn out for our events, and there's definite interest in the community, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had a great turnout, and to do this on a regular basis would be great, and then of course have a different panel every single time, so different perspectives.
And you mentioned young women. Can you see attracting more young women and focusing more on young women, learning, being mentored, that kind of thing?
You bring that up, we could even do a panel or part of a panel where it's millennials that are very successful in their 20s and what that looks like, because I think that'd be very inspiring to women that are just getting out of college.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we think about a lot when we cover some of these issues in Madison Magazine or on Channel 3. The millennial generation is really what we're seeing drive a lot of the economy here.
Yeah, it's driving a lot of the economy and a lot of change. I know within our own firm, just changing how we work, how we're thinking about things, because they just have a different perspective than people of older generations.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's a big success. Thank you for coming on and talking about it.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Jenny and Kirsten from SVA and to you for joining us. We'll see you next week on For the Record.